Good morning. Welcome. I am Michael Gunter, Professor of Political Science at Tennessee Technological University in the United States and Secretary General of the EU-Turkey Civic Commission. We have a wonderful panel for you today on U.S. foreign policy after Biden's election toward the Middle East, Turkey, and the Kurds. First, however, I will make a few brief introductory comments on the situation myself, and then I'll introduce our three main panelists who will each speak for about 15 minutes or more or less, depending on how they feel. And then, of course, in the second hour, we will take Q&A. All right, let me make a few introductory comments. First of all, everybody I know is criticizing Trump for good reason. However, it's only fair to point out a few things I think he did positive. As president, I think the main thing Donald Trump did that was positive for the United States, he kept the United States out of a big war. And there were at least one occasion I remember where he almost got into the war with Iran. But he kept the United States out of a big war. Trump also eliminated Iran's terrorist military leader Qasem Soleimani about a year ago, and also, in addition, Trump did the necessary things to kill the ISIS rapist leader al-Baghdadi, and in general, Trump kept the pressure on ISIS, which I think was positive and helped reduce it. However, as president, Trump also condoned Turkish aggression against the Syrian Kurds in Afrin in 2018, and then again in northeastern Syria in October 2019. In addition, Trump also turned a blind eye toward the horrific abuses against Syrian Kurds by Turkish-supported rebel proxies, jihadis. At that time, then presidential candidate Joseph Biden lashed out at Trump for green-lighting the invasion and said he would have never allowed it. Biden also called Erdogan an autocrat. Okay, now good things have happened as far as I'm concerned. Biden is the president. And as president, I think he should move beyond just waiting and seeing and become more proactive. The Kurdish issue, after all, is an international problem, not just a small one. So solving it will have very positive international results. However, as it's often been said, you can always trust the United States to do the right thing after it tries everything else. I would note that Arabs, Iranians, and Turks all have an anti-Western element in their nationalist ethnic DNA. But the Kurds, I do not think so. I think the Kurds could make very good allies for the United States. Matter of fact, they've already proven it. However, many Americans feel that we here in the United States are suffering from Middle East fatigue. The United States is getting tired of the complexities of the Middle East situation. However, I would say if the United States favors democracy, human rights, and secularism, and I think it does, then the Middle East does not have to be so complicated and so tiresome. Biden certainly has the capacity to listen on top of his experience and his knowledge. But we have to remember there are limits to what Biden can bring. Turkey remains a very important country for the United States, given its geostrategic position. But in the end, I would also remind that time is on the Kurd side, and we should realize that too. Okay, those are my introductory comments. Now I would like to introduce our first speaker, Graham Fuller. Graham Fuller, I've known him for well over 30 years. He's a former CIA official, very well known in the United States. He's retired now. He is the author recently of numerous books and articles on the Muslim world. Recently, he's even authored some novels on espionage, politics, and the future. In the past, he wrote a very interesting article called Fate of the Kurds that was published, one of the first published articles in a mainline journal, Foreign Affairs, about the Kurds. Recently, Mr. Fuller also published an article entitled, Is Turkey Out of Control? Is Turkey Out of Control? So without further ado, I'd like to present Graham Fuller, who's going to give some background information on U.S. foreign policy toward the Middle East, including Turkey and the Kurds. And we're going to join Mr. Fuller as he's talking. Thank you.
Well, I would have to argue, and this is, again, I'm being provocative, please forgive me. I only see two countries that really matter right now in the Middle East and in the near Middle East future, and one is Turkey and the other is Iran. I don't see any other country that is a remote competitor with either of those two states in terms of determining the future of that region. We can go into reasons for that, but there's not time enough right now. I would argue that Turkish foreign policy, we all know that Erdogan is a very difficult, impulsive figure, very harsh in his own administration of the country. But I would argue that Erdogan's policies, foreign policies, are probably representative of the longer range Turkish future. I don't think there's any going back to the old Turkey, that the beloved of the US as loyal NATO ally. That is gone. Turkey is Turkey with its own huge ambitions and vision. It's more than just ambition, it's vision of what the Turkish role of Turks and Turkey is. I would also have to say much the same thing about Iran. We know that the United States has all but, well, I won't say destroyed Iran, but has put Iran under desperate circumstances. But it's amazing that the country has survived, even economically. And in some ways, some might argue that the Iranian economy has actually benefited from all of these sanctions because they've had to develop their own domestic economies and technical capabilities. So in any case, these are the two countries, I think, that are going to be dominating the region. It doesn't have to be in any military sense necessarily, but simply power and importance and historical significance. I just don't see anybody out there right now as a rival to them. I would also argue that once Iran is readmitted onto the world scene, I think it will become much less radical. I even question right now how radical, quote unquote, a threat Iran is. That's a long subject. But I think that once Iran falls into a more normal pattern, we will see it as much less radical than it's viewed today. I would also, and this is even going further on a limb, when I look at the Persian Gulf region, let's say over 20 years, but life goes on. There will be 20 years from today. I think the Gulf is increasingly less and less and less important. The role of petroleum, of oil, is diminishing all the time. The prices have dropped. It comes up and down, but basically it's very low. There's too much oil in the world, and mostly people want to stop using petroleum. So I think the demand for oil will be less. And what do the Persian Gulf countries have to offer other than oil? Virtually nothing, I'm afraid. Secondly, if we look at global climate change, the Persian Gulf and Saudi Arabia in particular are going to be severely hard hit. Temperatures will reach such a degree within 20 years or so that most people will not be able to spend much time outdoors without being severely harmed with their health. So I think foreigners are not going to want to go off to the Gulf on vacation down the road because of huge heat. So I don't know what kind of a future these countries have. They've been very clever, especially the UAE, in the use of its own money. But let's be honest, these countries have been to a large degree put together by foreign expat workers. And I fear they lack the fundamental foundation for true serious role in the world. I would even have to say that about Saudi Arabia, which I think is, and pardon me for saying so, many people may be offended, but I think it is truly lacking in the foundations of an important great state in terms of deep culture or deep history or deep economy or deep skills, cultural skills, etc. They're simply not there, and the country cannot go on forever as a dependent upon its economy in that sense. I would finally say one or two other points, and then I will stop. By the way, I should say MBS has not done his country any favors, which has very low standing in the world for many reasons we all know about. I think one of the most important issues, and I'm sorry, one more issue on Saudi Arabia, and I'm sorry, this is delicate. I'm not a Muslim, so some people may feel offended, but I apologize for it. I do not think the Wahhabi vision of Islam represents the future of Islam. To me, that interpretation of Islam is rather regressive and intolerant. And I don't think that most Muslims of the world really believe that that is the kind of vision of Islam that they want. So the final major factor that I think we need to think about is the emergence of Eurasia. Today, between China and Russia, Eurasia is emerging in a very, very significant and powerful way. China and Russia are cooperating in very serious ways that I think is going to be fairly lasting. They are united in opposition to American efforts at hegemony. So this new Silk Road, or the One Belt, One Road that China is building, is immensely imaginative. It's going to affect all Central Asian states. It's reaching as far as Azerbaijan, to Turkey, now even to Italy. Anybody who is going to be doing business in the Middle East is going to be dealing with China and Russia to a very, very serious extent. And China is becoming more important, as we know, by the day. So even though it doesn't immediately and directly affect the Kurds, it does affect the entire surrounding area. And finally, I was supposed to be talking, Michael told me, about U.S. foreign policy towards the region, but I think what I've said really affects that all. I think the United States in many ways is a fading and diminishing power, and this is not due to Trump. It is due to much more deep, serious rooted problems in the United States that is going to prevent it from, I think, the kind of leadership that at least the US wants to play. Those days are over. Nobody is looking for a single global leadership anymore. I think the United States has not passed that test successfully over the past 20, 30, 40 years even. So I'll stop there. These are, as I say, highly speculative. I'm sure some of them may be wrong, but I hope it will spark some further discussion and debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. I think it's very valuable to have this broader context to put the Kurdish problem into more long-term perspective. And we thank you for all your experience and willingness to ponder the future possibilities. And there'll be a chance for questions later on. Now our second speaker is Hishar Usoy. He's a co-spokesman of the HDP Foreign Affairs Committee. He's, I understand, Hishar, correct me if I'm wrong, you are an MP in the Turkish parliament for the HDP party, and which is the pro-Kurdish party. And Graham told us it's also the HDP has become the leading leftist party in the Turkish parliament. And Hishar is going to talk about the U.S.-Turkey relations after the U.S. election. So, Hishar, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Michael. I hope everybody hears me, and hello to all others who are participating. Yeah, I mean, it's a big issue. I was thinking how the U.S. policy will change with Trump going and Biden is the president now. Fundamentally, I think there won't be any radical change. Let me start by saying that. Yes, I mean, if we look at the Trump period, he was in fight with almost all institutions of the United States, including foreign policy institutions, as well as defense institutions, both of them very much, in engagement with the Kurdish peoples in the Middle East. Trump was always fighting with the European authorities. Trump was fighting with the NATO, which really damaged transatlantic relationships. And Trump was a person who could be easily manipulated by President Erdogan, which he did several times. So unlike Trump, Biden is a very kind of institutions person, I would say. I mean, a lot of experience in American politics, of course, since 1973. And I think it seems to us that he will be trying to repair what Trump destroyed over the last 4 years. So, which means that he will try to develop kind of a more institutional approach to relations with Turkey, a repairing process with the European Union and the NATO. And precisely because that the US and the European Union can work together, not only in the NATO, but in general, they can work together. I think this is somehow forcing President Erdogan at home to kind of have a U-turn in his relations. Nowadays, he is trying to improve relations with the European Union. They are having kind of a strange intimacy nowadays. I don't think it's gonna last long, but still, I mean, because the U.S.-Turkey relations are at the very low, I would say, historically speaking, and there are many vocal people who are saying that Turkey is no longer an ally there in DC, which I happen to frequently visit. And but it seems that I think Erdogan pushed it a lot, and now he will be trying to somehow repair also with the United States. So the issue is, I think, I mean, everybody was expecting when Biden comes, particularly the Kurdish expectation is too high. I think that is very misleading. Ultimately, I mean, he was the vice president during the Obama administration. We know President Biden from that period as well. So the Kurdish expectation is so high, not because of like Biden is going to really save the Kurds, but because Trump was so bad. That is, I mean, that is why people exaggerate. So once Trump is gone, so almost Kurdish people think that, I mean, many of them, oh, he's going to, be quite harsh on President Erdogan, and he's going to support all kinds of Kurdish initiatives. Had he been the president, the Kurds could have had the referendum and became independent. So these are all myths, fantasies that are quite prevalent within the Kurdish public. But what can happen from a more constructive perspective I'm trying to look at? I totally agree with Michael that Turkey is a very, very important country, a member of the NATO there. And when you look at the US interests in the region, they kind of need Turkey. And whether Republican, Democrat, it doesn't really matter. The priorities of the United States will remain as kind of limiting the influence of Iran and Russia in the Middle East. Over the last few years, these two forces, they quite became powerful in the Middle East. So the only country that can somehow balance both Iran and Russia seems to be Turkey, which is a NATO ally. At the end of the day, the American instrumental thinking is that, we do have problems. S-400s, hopefully, at one point, we are going to convince the Turkish leadership they're going to quit that thing. So, but at the end of the day, Turkey has been a part of the architecture of the NATO over the last 70 years, right? And so that is a long history, and it's not really that easy. You can't, change that overnight. So that is why I think, and precisely because of that, so far, the US and Europe could not take a very strong kind of stance against President Erdogan, despite all of his bullying. I would say he was mainly bullying both the US and Europe, but somehow that geopolitical location of Turkey and the kind of the strategic need for Turkey in order to balance things in the region in the new century. So that is why I think there will still be a need for Turkey. The Europe and US, they do have a problem with President Erdogan and his allies somehow. I think this is conjunctural, but, with a new leadership, and particularly for the US, if S-400 is somehow suspended, I think they're going to have a honeymoon and they can easily forget the Kurds overnight. I mean, who cares about 2 million Kurds in Syria, given that Turkey is an 85 million kind of country, huge one, the second biggest army in the NATO. And, when you look at kind of that from that kind of a real political perspective, I think Turkey is going to remain as a key ally of the US in the future. The problem is that it's not that the US is going to have good relations with Turkey in the future. They kind of have to. But the problem is the US doesn't have a Kurdish policy at all, I would say. Actually, they don't have even a Syria policy or Iraq policy. I mean, they are all over the place. Very good at destroying things, but very bad at constructing things, I would say. So, I mean, look at, for example, Iraq. I mean, $5 trillion, so much military infrastructure and everything. And at the end of the day, the US is defeated in Iraq. Now they are kind of pulling their forces to the Kurdish territories there, right? And so in Syria, in Libya, I mean, look at it. I mean, whenever they enter, they enter, but then they need to build something. I mean, that part is really a big problem. So they don't have a Syria policy. Their engagement with the Kurds remain quite tactical still. It is at that level. Even their engagement with the Kurds in Iraq is quite tactical. So I think the big challenge is this. They try to deal with these Kurdish issues, multiple Kurdish issues, in a compartmentalized way. For example, they do have very good relations with Iraqi Kurds, for example, but they tend to not have good relations with the Kurds in Turkey, for example, which is a NATO ally. So they do have a rather different relationship with the Syrian Kurds, right, in Rojava. So what is happening? Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. I think there was some confusion. So these Kurdish issues. I mean, what may happen in the near future? I think the US is going to have a kind of internally differentiated Kurdish policy. I think when compared with Trump, better relations with the Iraqi Kurds, better relations with the Kurds in Syria, still tactical though, but the Biden administration may, pursue the kind of conventional American policy over the Kurdish issue in Turkey, which, although sometimes may be critical, but at the end of the day, which kind of is mostly silent over Turkey's criminalization and terrorization of Kurdish demands within Turkey, because Turkey is a NATO ally. So in that sense, I think the Kurdish expectations should not be very high, although there will be some differences, with the Trump administration, which is going to give the Kurds some kind of opportunities to engage the American politicians in a more open way, but we shouldn't exaggerate that. The priorities and interests of the United States as a whole are going to dictate American Kurdish and American Turkish relationships. So the best thing, what we expect as the HDP, for example, and we are very open about this when we talk to American politicians too, they can't simply ignore the Kurdish question that is at home in Turkey. By that, for example, they are trying to isolate the case of Rojava from the other two Kurdish issues. They can't simply, this is against history, this is against sociology, that those kinds of borders, they do not mean much. When you look at all these Kurdish issues in different countries, they are pretty much intertwined. So that is why they need to have a holistic approach. From that perspective, if the Americans, they want to pursue their own interests, they should take a more constructive position with respect to the resolution of the Kurdish issue as a whole. And for that one, they need to encourage Turkey to address its own Kurdish question with political means, not through the military or, militarizing the whole conflict. But if Turkey is able to re-engage the Kurds in Turkey in a peaceful way, that will be the key for Turkey's better relations with the Kurds in Syria and in Iraq. And if you just imagine, if Turkey and the Kurds can have kind of a peaceful alliance across the region, I think that is going to empower both the Kurds and Turkey, and it will be very much to the interest of both Europe and the United States. Let me stop here. It's a bit wishful thinking maybe, but in the Q&A session, we can elaborate on that one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hishar, for your up-to-date and very specific comments about the Turkish, Kurdish, and U.S. relationship, and look forward to the Q&A. Now, our third presenter is going to be Shanam Mohammed, the representative of the Autonomous Administration of Northern and Eastern Syria, formerly Rojava, and based in the United States. And Shanam is going to talk about USMiddle East policy. Shanam, it's all yours.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me here in this event. It's really good honor for me to be with all of you. Thank you so much. First of all, let me today, as it is the 26th of January, it is the 6 years, I can say, anniversary of the Kobani liberation. As today, Kobani has been liberated from the ISIS. And Kobani is, we consider, is the city of freedom. And for that, I would like here to convey my, respect and thanking all the people who participate in liberating this city from all parts of Kurdistan, from Turkey, from north of Iraq, from the Kurdish region, and Iran and Syria, as well as also many other fighters from the other, all over the world. They come to defeat ISIS and fight this terrorist group. So I would like to thank everyone. I would like to thank even the United States that time who participate with the air power in defeating ISIS in Kobani. And from the Kobani, I can say we started the relation or the partnership with the United States. So the reclaim of the city of Kobani, I can say it sealed the relationship between the Northeast Syria and with the United States and the global coalition. Of course, those who fought in Kobani, they were that time the People Protection Units and Women Protection Units, YPJ and YPG, all who sacrificed themselves in order to defeat ISIS, the most terrors and brutal forces. It happened in this, century, I can say. So I think the United States, when they see that these women and men, they are really willing and they are really fighting in a very brave and courageous way, they also would that time, like to have this partnership, and they make their allies in defeating ISIS and the terror. So we can say, it happened during the Obama administration that time. And of course, it is on our, mutual, there was a mutual interest to drive ISIS back for the United States and for our forces also and our people there. After that, in 2015, SDF have been, established with the many people, not only Kurds, the Arab, the Syriac. So SDF, it is a diverse forces, could defeat the ISIS and could defeat the terrorist groups there in the region. So we remained steadfast as the US ally partnership to defeating ISIS, and continued to the last even place. Then we started to defeat ISIS, the caliphate in Al-Baghouz in 2019. During this, we can say that our military or partnership with the United States, or the global coalition, it was only on the military side. It didn't be translated, or we couldn't see it very well in the political side. For instance, I can say, till now, we are excluded from the peace talk in Syria as the Syrian Democratic Council and the Autonomous Administration in Northeast Syria. They are not included in the peace talk of the Syrian negotiation in Geneva. As well as we are excluded even from the Constitution Committee to have the constitution of the future of Syria. We are not included in this Constitution Committee. So for that, we ask it to have this military partnership to translate it to action, to be in a political partnership. As I said, to political support, to support this region, which is the Northeast Syria. It's about 5 million people living there. Kurds, Arabs, Syriacs, Christians, Yazidis, all the diversity who are living in the region. The SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces, they are, protecting and defending these people there all together. And they are administrating also this region together as the autonomous administration of Northeast Syria. But unfortunately, we are, all these representatives of 5 million in the Northeast Syria, they are not included in all this peace talk of Syria. We are a part of Syria, and we have to be recognized as the role, the key role in resolution, in finding the solution for the Syrian issue. Now, 10 years have been now passed almost, and there is still, we didn't reach to any solution for the crisis of Syria. So why? We can say now, why we are not at the table of the peace talk. We are part of Syria. We never asked it for the dividing or to be separate from Syria. And we ask for the centralized Syria so that the community on the region can administrate the region together by themselves. Of course, it happened because of the Turkish veto. Whenever we ask anyone, either in the United States or in Europe also that time, they say, oh, there is a Turkish veto on you. We can't include you. So I don't know, we know now very well, I agree with Mr. Ibn Hishar and I can say, yes, there is a tactical relationship, but if now ISIS has finished, then what after that? I mean, post-ISIS, how is this relation will continue? So during the Trump administration, all of you, they witnessed how Mr. Trump, that time he, get the decision to withdraw from the region. Just in a while, Turkey attacked our region and they took the Sarikaniya and Tel Abyad. Of course, in 2018 also, before they occupied the Afrin region. So all this, nobody say anything. Everyone, they turn blind eyes what's happening in the region. Nobody even talk about the human rights abuses happening in Afrin or in Sarikaniya and Tel Abyad. Nobody talk about the women has been killed and raped and arrested in Afrin, and even the United Nations documented all these things, but we didn't see any action. So why? Who is responsible for all these atrocities happening in the region? It's Turkey, because under the Turkish occupation. And with of course, the tool which Turkey is using is the Syrian National Army, and they are, most of them, many groups, radical Muslim groups, they are there. I can say here, because they are really radical groups, we can say that there was a video released recently in Afrin. The head of Jabhatul Nusra, who is wanted even, Abdullah al-Muhaisini, he is Saudi, he was seen in a video in Afrin. So that means we can say that these terrorist groups are in Afrin now. They are freely there, walking, going and visiting their friends and so on. Even in Sarikaniya, Ras Al Ain, it happened that time, demonstration against Mr. Macron that time, and they were raising the signs of ISIS in Sarikaniya. And when here we ask it about that, they say, no, there is no terrorist group in the region. Why? Because of Turkey. Turkey wants that. So Turkey is responsible as an occupier authority in the region, should be responsible for all the atrocities which are going on in our region. So for that, they should hold accountable for what they have did, what they did in Afrin. Now, I know what's going on still now. It is, going on in Afrin, all the human rights violation and women's rights and all these things. So I think now the new administrations, of course, it will not be a major, changes toward Syria. I think their priority was China, Iran, and so on. But I think also the priority also is there for the human rights, for democracy, promoting democracy in the region. And this is, from this side, we can say, yes, we can get maybe some support from the new administration to highlight the human rights in the region, in Afrin, in Sarikaniya, and in other regions, and even for promoting the democracy, to support us in the northeast Syria to help this autonomous administration to empower this governance there. So I can say there is another challenge now which we can face during this administration. Now ISIS, we said we have defeated ISIS as a caliphate. But still we have the sleeper cells of ISIS. They are very, now appear in the region. Just on Friday, last Friday, two Arab women, they are not Kurds, but because they are the head of the council of the Shire, which is in the district of Al-Hasaka, south of Shaddadi, they've been killed, assassinated by ISIS cells. And these two women, they are Arabs because they are working with the administration. So because they are supporting the administration, because they are supporting the SDF, they've been arrested or kidnapped, I can say, kidnapped. After 2 days, they have still, their body being seen beheaded at the side of the road. So that means here, we can say the ISIS sleeper cell, they are still in the region. For that, there is a very necessary that the United States military should stay in the region now. So they did not finish it till now. Another thing we can say, there is the threat of the, when I say ISIS, because sometimes Iran uses the ISIS, sometimes Turkey uses the ISIS, and even the regime of Assad uses the ISIS to be against the SDF. So this is what's going on. Now another threat is the threat of Turkey itself. Now, just before 2 days, they are now releasing a statement that we are going to attack Derik, which is at the northeast of Syria, at the border of Iraq. And they would like to attack Derik and attack also Shangal. So this is very dangerous. If it happened, I don't know if the new administration could stop this happening. Because if it happens, it will be having a very dangerous consequences for the whole region, not only for our region, for the north of Syria. Now we are trying, after 10 years of the war, we are trying to build the stability, peaceful, to get to a resolution or to get to the solution for Syrian crisis according to the United Nations resolution 2254. But if it happened, that means there will be no solution for Syrian problem. There will be a more crisis, more conflict, complicated, not only in Syria, but in the whole regional countries. This is if it happened. And I think the Turkish government, they are serious in that. They are very serious that they will be attacking Derik. Derik, it is now very peaceful. The people, it has Kurds and the Syriac, they are living there, Christians. And so it is really, I don't know about the new administration. I think they should stop Turkey from attacking other regions or occupying more and more land from the Syrian territory. For instance, in Afrin, in Sarikania, in Jarablus, not only on the Kurdish, which we were controlled. In the other region, like Jarablus, it is not in our control. Al-Bab, it is the same. So all this region should be liberated, should be, now Turkey should withdraw from this region so the people can go back to their homes. The people of Afrin, they are 10 kilometers away from Afrin, they are living in the camps. Whereas the other groups who is backed by Turkey as the Syrian National Army and the Islamist groups, most of them, they are living in our homes and houses. And one of them, my house now is occupied by these people. They are living in my houses, and they occupied all of my, territory, business, whatever my family has, they took it. And whereas my family, they are displaced in the northeast Syria. So this is, should be stopped. I think now the role of the new administration, of the Biden administration, I think of course, we should not expect a lot for the Kurdish people, because even in Syria, we are not only, talking about as a Kurdish region, we are talking about the diverse region there, And so I think it should be working with the people who defeat ISIS. They should be really committed to and they have a moral, commitment to have these people there, to have their peaceful, to live in peace, stability, and to have their freedom there. We paid 11,000 from our men and women. They have been killed during this, fighting ISIS. We liberated many areas in Syria, which is not only Kurdish regions, for instance, in Baghuz, in Deir Zor, but we are working for the whole Syria, for the whole people there, for the whole Syrian people who are living in Syria. So this is what we, the administration, even the European there, they should know that. So leaving always Erdogan and Turkey attacking the region, having the shadow of the PKK being there, it is not fair at all. Because the people who are being killed there, they are not PKK. PKK is a problem. If it is a problem as they name it, it is a Kurdish issue. There is a Kurdish issue in Turkey, in Syria, in Iran, in everywhere. So there is a Kurdish issue. It is not an issue of PKK. It is the issue of the Kurdish people. So this should be, recognized. If we always turn blind eyes for the Kurdish issue and looking at it as a PKK problem, it is not fair at all. So whenever they attack us, they say there are terrorist groups, there are terrorist people in Syria. For that, they are attacking. For instance, even before 3 days, let me say, in Tel Rifat, Turkey and this mercenary with them, they shelled Tel Rifat, who live in this city, the people, displaced people of Afrin. So they killed 2 children and a woman. She was 46 years old, and the children of 5 years old and 12 years old. So I will ask here, are these children where they are PKK or they are terrorists? The woman of 46 years old, was she a terrorist to be killed? So this should be recognized, why it's going on. I know and I understand that Turkey is really a very major key country in the region as a NATO member, as a strategic, geographical, strategic, political, even geographic place, it is yes. As a US ally, it is yes, but still we have to find a solution for this. We said many times, we are not against the Turkey to be as a Turkish people or what Turkey do. But the Turkey is attacking our people in Syria. The Turkey is occupying my city in Afrin. The Turkey is killing the children in my state. So we can't just keep silent, and we have to say something. We have to, I think if the new administration could mediate between the Kurds in Syria and the people of Syria with the Turkey, that would be good. So that we will be at least having a dialogue. By dialogue, we can solve many problems. By dialogue, we can solve the problem either with the Syrian issue or with the Kurdish issue. And now we have the intra-Kurdish dialogue with the NKSA. And the United States, they told us many times, they are serious to bring the Kurds together so that they can unify the Kurdish people in Syria to have, maybe to be at the Constitution Committee or to be at the table together. This is what they, told us about. And we hope that it happened. We hope and we wish from the new administration to help our people in Syria, in the northeast Syria and all over Syria. And we are still, I can say, we can play a very major role in the Syrian solution issue. This is very problem. As a Kurds also, they can play this role as they are, having the pro-democracy, equal gender like women and men, freedom of religions. All these values, we share it together with the United States and with the Western also, the countries of Europe at all. I can stop here and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Shanam, for your very moving, almost on-site evaluation of the problems that are being created by Turkey, very dangerous, and the need for the United States to take a more active intermediary role between the Kurds and Turkey, specifically in the Syrian situation, and that the problem is a lot more than just the PKK terrorism, as Turkey says, but it's a problem involving the entire region of Kurdish people. Now, at this point, before we go into the Q&A, I wanted to thank Dersin Dederferin for setting this up. It was no easy task, and she did a great job. And I also want to recognize Carrie-Ann Vesserine, the chair of the EU-Turkey Civic Commission, who has, with her leadership over more than a decade now, enabled us to examine these problems in a way that I think has drawn a very encouraging support for the Kurdish cause without being unfair to Turkey. Okay.